I was curious what kind of schedule you had set up for the monks at SRF. How much meditation, group and individual, how long a work period? Were there classes that they attended? Did they take seclusion, silence periods? Are there things that they did that you feel we should do here at Ananda? Well, quite honestly, I think what we're doing here at Ananda is very good. What I did there was intended for a different setup, a different situation. Yes, we had silence at meals. That was something that Master requested. It was a difficult thing to initiate. After all, they had been doing this for a long time, that is to say, eat together and not keep silence. And here was this little 23-year-old telling them what to do. It wasn't easy, and I never tried to tell anybody what to do, but I did like and try to encourage a group effort. And so when I found that they couldn't do it, I said, well, let's, after our morning meditation, let's, since we're in silence coming from the meditation, let's keep it. So they did. And after they got used to that, then I said, well, let's do it in the evening after the afternoon meditation. And that wasn't so difficult. I never had to make a rule about lunch. By then they were used to it, they liked it, and so they didn't speak at all. But it wasn't an easy thing in the beginning. I had to sit there and sort of be a policeman and remind people every time they spoke, otherwise it would have fallen apart. And so I got dubbed sarcastically the monk. But I had to do it, and it did bear fruit. I had morning meditations and I had evening meditations. I didn't want to make too many rules. Master said to me, don't make too many rules, it destroys the spirit. And so I knew that some people, myself included, wanted to meditate a great deal more. I knew that others would not be able to meditate a great deal. So what I really was trying to do was organize a group thing as minimally as necessary in order to keep people meditating some, and then give others the chance to meditate a lot longer if they wanted to. So I was not at all. In fact, I studied the Benedictine rule, and I didn't like it. I didn't like all those rules. I mean, they were exaggerated. Benedict had the idea that at the table, to give you the idea that your food came from God, he had bread coming down on a pulley. It was a bit absurd. It was a good thing, but in its way. But I did not want to do that. I gave them classes, and we were very free. I don't think they're nearly so free now, but I gave them a great deal more latitude to develop themselves as they could. So, but I don't see how we can do that here. We live far apart from each other, and so we just have to do it in a different way. What do you think the line of guru, why do you think the line of gurus ended with Master? Why did it go on as long as it did, and why didn't it continue? Can't place them all, can you? A particular line of gurus was sent to this world to establish a particular new teaching. Each one of them came with a particular mission, a particular role to play. It's really quite wonderful when you see the various aspects that each one emphasized. Master emphasizing joy and love, Sri Yukteswar emphasizing wisdom, Lahiri Mahasaya emphasizing the science of yoga, Lahiri Mahasaya being married, Sri Yukteswar being married and then a monk, Master never marrying, all the different aspects to sort of try to appeal to everybody in one way or another. But why did the line end there? That's God's will. It's not a matter of somebody made a decision. The whole message was completed with these four great masters, including, of course, Babaji, and before that, of course, Jesus Christ, because he is one of the gurus. he appeared to Babaji and asked him to send someone to the West to bring this message to the West. So there's an awkward part there in that the teaching of India, and Master himself said this to me. He said, you have to meet the Guru in the flesh. You have to have met him at least once. I asked him about the man he initiated in Vrindavan when he on his two penniless boys to Vrindavan, and I asked him. He kept in touch, and Master said inwardly he had been in touch by attunement. The fact of having to meet the Guru. Another point is that a man cannot be liberated until he has freed at least 6 others. Master also said that. Now, how do you put that together with the line of Gurus ending before many of you were born? How are you going to have that contact with someone? I think we must understand that there will be no more Guru of SRF, that is to say, of this line of masters, but there have to be Gurus within this line. There have to be people who have reached a certain level of enlightenment whom God gives the job of helping others. This is not only natural, it's human nature. And in Christianity, a good example is St. Francis, who had his disciples, but he directed people to Christ, to Jesus, as the power behind that. Now, Master's passing is so recent that it's not so difficult for me to say he is the Guru, but he is anyway, in a specific and special way, not in the traditional way of the teachings of India, where it's just automatically understood that that line goes on. So in that respect, either I'm a guru or I'm not a guru, but it doesn't really matter. Basically, a guru has to be somebody who knows God. I don't know God. How in heaven's name can I be a guru? Well, quite frankly, I'm perfectly happy not being. But I do believe that, in fact, I play an important role in many people's lives in that sense. How is up to God? It's, I think, our need right now to emphasize this line of masters, because otherwise what would you get? You get everybody going off and teaching his special teachings. I don't think we should ever do that. Master came to spearhead one particular message, and that, I think, is absolutely essential. Even during his lifetime, it's an astonishing aspect of his life that he didn't really train teachers. The disciples who were close to him were not teachers. Rajarshi was, of course, very close. Master told me, well, he had a center in Kansas City, but I told him to stop. Sister Kanamata was liberated. He didn't want her teaching. Dayamata, frankly, she doesn't know the teachings. Many of them don't know the teachings. They never had to teach this work. And those that he had as teachers weren't really people that he had expected to do that. Dr. Lewis, who taught for him, he didn't understand the teachings. I mean, this is sort of insider stuff, but honestly, he did not. He understood enlightenment. He was highly advanced. But there were a lot of basic things that man did not understand. I think it was with Master's passing, I think I came toward the end of his life with that mission. I know it was. He said it was. But how do you figure it all out? Well, I'm not well today, and I'm not sure I can explain myself very well. However, the truth is that we have some wonderful teachers here, people who know the teachings inwards and outwards, backwards and forwards. Lots of you are very fine teachers. I didn't find that so much. Bernard was very good. but very egotistical. I have discouraged anyone from teaching who wants to teach. What we have is people who really have to be dragged out to teach. I said to Master, "Sir, I don't want to be a teacher." He said, "You'd better learn to like it. It's what you've got to do." It took me 7 years to persuade myself there was any good in teaching. I literally thought that it was a waste of time, and I thought that I just had to be out there teaching because everybody else had good karma and I didn't have good karma. So he put me out there because I didn't see that it did any good. And then gradually I found it took me 7 years, believe it or not. It took me 7 years to realize that in fact, there was good happening. Somebody who had never believed in God said that after hearing a talk, he now believed in God. Somebody who said he wanted to commit suicide after a talk of mine decided he wouldn't. And more I found that yes, it was doing good, but it took me quite a while to really persuade myself that it was my blessing to be able to teach people. I never have thought of myself as a teacher. I've only thought of myself as somebody sharing what he knows with others, because I myself am so enthusiastic about it that to me it's the most wonderful thing I can do. Not to teach, but to share these insights and these truths. He saw that in me. I remember when I was new and I wasn't feeling all that well, and I was having a mood, and when I came out of it, he said, "No more moods now. Otherwise, how will you be able to help people?" And normally he'd have said, "No more moods now, it doesn't help you." But he always emphasized that this was my particular work. And I came to discover over a period of time that it was and is a great blessing that I myself grow as a result of it. But the role of guru, well, I don't think you need to worry about it, because what I see is that everywhere I look, everybody's flowering. We have people just growing spiritually in ways that I don't see anywhere else. I know David Frawley, who's, you all know his name probably, and he told me that I've been to just probably every ashram in America. He says, well, Jyotish asked him once, "Which do you find the best one?" He said, "Ananda, Ananda, and Ananda." That was his answer. He said to me, I've never seen such a group. And it's the only ashram that I've ever seen that I think will outlive the death of the founder. Why? Because I'm not leading. I'm trying to help people to lead themselves. I'm interested in empowering other people. I've always tried to pass on everything instead of doing it all myself. And he said the other leaders that I know, they all try to do it themselves, and when they go, they're who else can do it? Daya doesn't do anything for anybody that way. She does it all. Maria was there in Encinitas one time. She lived there for 6 months, and Marina Warner, and they had a door between the kitchen and the dining room of the guest house there, the retreat facility, that was broken. She said that 6 months later when she left, it still hadn't been repaired because permission hadn't come from the board of directors to fix that door. Well, how can you expect it to go on that way? Honestly, I do not see it. I hope to heaven it does go on, but I don't see it. I don't see that anybody dares do anything. I found that when I lived there, I couldn't dare do anything. Anything I did was, ego, ego. Well, for heaven's sake, it took more ego trying not to do it than I mean, if you have a creative nature, you've got a creative nature, and it takes more ego to suppress it than it has to just let it go on. I wasn't thinking of me. I was thinking of let these things happen. This is a great mission. We've got something to share with the world. And to them, that was ego. Well, now their attitude, as I saw in a letter from one of their directors to a friend of mine in Arizona, that poor Kriyananda is in such delusion, he's always trying to best us. Well, I couldn't care less about besting them. I have something that I've always wanted to do since the age of 15. Master told me to do it, they told me not to do it. Whom was I to listen to? I had to do what he told me to. He's my guru, not they. And so I've done it. And I've done it with lots of enthusiasm, joy, love. I care for people. I could not be like Mrinalini in a deposition was asked the question, what would you do? Here's a group of people in Timbuktu, let's say, who are ready for Kriya and want Kriya, but Mount Washington can't send the teachers there. What would you do for them? She said, well, they just have to reincarnate in a position where they could get Kriya. Well, I just cannot, accept that kind of attitude. To me, it's just outrageous. I accept that it's an attitude some people can have. It's so far from my way of thinking that I wouldn't know how to relate to it. If there's somebody, as Master put it, if there's somebody crying by the wayside, I will come back again and again to help that soul and bring him over the ocean of delusion to my Father's kingdom. That's how I feel. And God knows, I hope I don't have to come back, but if I do, it'll be for that reason, because that's the only motivation I've got. I really do want to help people. Master said to me that God won't come to you until the end of life. Death itself is the final sacrifice you have to make. So that's fine, I don't care. So I don't know God right now, but I know that he's close to me, and I have great joy living for him, and I feel joy in my heart with him. And honestly, these definitions don't matter. He's the guru anyway. I know Rajarshi one time, Master said, never forget where your power comes from. And Rajarshi, with a little boyish smile, said, I won't, Master, it comes from you. Well, that's my attitude. And I think that should be our attitude. God will take care of these big things. I would say let him worry about it. But I do believe that there will have to be gurus in this movement, but not gurus of the movement. Our work right now is to establish this line, this teaching, center it in these teachers, these gurus, and in their message. That's our job. And what will happen several generations down the road is God's worry. But I don't believe that it will be as the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikhs call that the Guru. Their scripture, the Guru Granth Sahib is their scripture. Master didn't say that. I know that when Sister Ganamata, she didn't have disciples as far as we know. And Master said she was liberated. And Master had told me that everybody to be liberated has to liberate 6 others. That is, at least bring them up to a level of being set on the path. And when he said this to me, he was in the elevator to go upstairs. When he said this to us, that she was liberated in this life. And the first thought that came into my mind was then, but she didn't have disciples. And he caught that thought. He said, she had disciples. So understand it that way if you like. Understand that it's all God anyway. And if you're coming closer to God, what more really matters? I see a lot of saints in this congregation, in these ashrams, in these members. I see people who are full of God. And to me, that means everything. So I don't know. It's a puzzle. I wish I could give you an exact ABC answer. I've given it, I think, as exactly as I'm capable of doing. In what degree should we obey authority, and what degree follow our own common sense? When I met Master, he asked me to give him my unconditional obedience and unconditional love. He gave me his unconditional love. And I desperately wanted to be accepted. I couldn't see any other solution for me except to be his disciple, but I did want to be honest with him. And I said, "Sir, what if I think you're wrong sometime?" He said, "I will never ask anything of you that God doesn't ask." Well, I said, "Okay, in that case, I give you my unconditional obedience." Now, I think I was wrong to give Dayamata obedience because she was wrong in just about all the counsel she gave me. But that may seem not a kind thing to say. After all, we're rival organizations. It may seem to come from a level of wrong attitude. Maybe so. Frankly, I'm so fed up with the way they've been behaving, telling lies to try to destroy me. If I were to tell you the things that they've tried to do, I think that your hair would stand on end. I don't feel that respect that I used to. I'm sorry. I wish I did. Love, yes, I do have love. I've given my love and I can never withdraw it. But when I see the lengths to which they've gone to try to destroy me, no, I'm sorry I tried to obey her because it caused me suffering for many years. A great deal of suffering because I couldn't tie these two things together. And yet what chance did they give me to do anything but just do what I've done? There was one time I put out, because somebody had given me a couple of 3 tapes of masters. I had received them in Italy from Renata Arlini, who received them from somebody else. And I had just told Daya that I was still loyal to Master's work and to the organization and to her. I am in my way still. But she asked me who gave me those tapes. I thought it doesn't mean anything to her, and I've pledged my word not to tell anyone. So after she got that response several times, she said, she sort of took a breath and said, "You've pledged your unconditional obedience. Prove it." I thought that was so dirty. Because I had made that promise to both of them, I had a choice, and I felt that I had no choice but to tell her. I felt that I had betrayed this friend of mine without any good, without any purpose. Why should she ask me, in the name of obedience and loyalty, to break my word for no good reason? No, I do not see virtue in that demand. And is it the first one? By no means. She called a group of monks and nuns together back in 1970. She said, "I know you all have heard that Kriyananda was kicked out. He was not kicked out, he resigned." And she demanded that I, from then on, make that announcement. I said, "I can't make it. It's not true, and you know it's not true." She sort of paused a moment and she said, "Well, you should have resigned." Well, that's not the truth, damn it. I can't tell a lie, nor can I speak just to be political. The truth is, anybody in my position, and they had counted on it, would say I wasn't kicked out, I resigned. I couldn't do it because it wasn't the truth. And I have abided by that truth. And it just made them embarrassed as all get out, but that's their problem. It put me in a very difficult position. Here I was starting Ananda. It would have been so easy to say I resigned and I had my own thing to do, and people could have bought that. But instead, I had to put it in such a way that anybody from here could, and some did, go down there and get the so-called straight dope. And of course, they were warned against me and told what a terrible person I am. And as a result, some people left. I wasn't going to change the story just to be politically helpful. I had to tell the truth. It would have been a lot easier to go to Fiji, as Dayamata suggested. The only positive suggestion she ever made. She said I'd had a good response there. Why not go move there? But she said, "You've settled right on our doorstep." Well, I couldn't help it. This is where God gave me the opportunity to do something. Listen, I could go on in that way. I won't. I just, if I were feeling better, I probably would be a lot more tactful. I've had an odd feeling today. I'll read to you a story of P.G. Wodehouse, just the beginning part, where at the time my story begins, Archibald was still engaged to Aurelia Camerly, and possibly the happiest young man in the whole W1 postal district. But the storm clouds, as I regret to say, were only just over the horizon. The tempest, which was so nearly to wreck the bark of love, had already begun to gather. Few fashionable engagements, said Mr. Mulliner, have ever started with fairer prospects of success than that of my nephew Archibald and Aurelia Camerly. Even cynical Mayfair had to admit that for once a really happy and enduring marriage appeared to be indicated. For such a union there is no surer basis than a community of taste, and this the young couple possessed in full measure. Archibald liked imitating hens, and Aurelia liked listening to him. She used to say she could listen to him all day, and she sometimes did. It was after one of these sessions when, hoarse but happy, he was walking back to his rooms to dress for dinner, that he found his progress impeded by a man of seedy aspect who, without any preamble but a short hiccup, said that he had not been able to taste bread for 3 days. It puzzled Archibald a little that a complete stranger should be making him the recipient of confidences which might more reasonably have been bestowed upon his medical advisor. But it so happened that only recently he himself had not been able to taste even Stilton cheese. So he replied as one having knowledge. "Don't you worry, old thing," he said. "That often happens when you get a cold in the head. It passes off." "I have not got a cold in the head, sir," said the man. "I've got pains in the back, weak lungs, a sick wife, stiff joints, 5 children, internal swellings, and no pension after 7 years in His Majesty's Army, owing to jealousy in high quarters. But I've not got a cold in the head. Why I can't taste bread is because I have no money to buy it. I wish, sir, you could hear my children crying for bread." "Well, I'd love to," said Archibald. Civilly. "I must come up and see you sometime." Anyway. Apart from the jealousy in high quarters, I feel sort of like that today. So, let me go on here. Why does it seem like good luck that we're searching for God while others are still wandering in delusion at the end of Brahma's day? Well, it's nothing like good luck at all. Unless you call it good luck to have a few brains for a change. Karma. You finally decide you've had enough and you want to get out. That's as simple as that. Master said that even suffering is what drives people. That's why you need suffering. There is, for instance, why does heat hurt? If a hot stove didn't hurt your hand and you touch it, you wouldn't pull your hand back, you could destroy your hand. But the pain hurts. Pain is what makes you recoil from wrong action. It's as simple as that. Sometimes in this life, some little thing comes up and you just remember subconsciously all those lives that you've suffered, and you realize that the answer isn't there, and you want something more. And so you know in your heart, it's not good luck, for heaven's sake. It's that your own memory tells you this is not where I want to be. And some people have this from childhood. Other people get it later on. But the reason every one of you is in this room today is not good luck. It's because something tells you that God has to be the answer. There aren't answers to be found. And people on the path do, in fact, they go for a certain distance, and then that good karma sort of peters out, and they start looking around saying, well, it wasn't so bad after all. So they've got to try again. And so people don't stay with it, and some people fall from the path, and it takes a long time. I said to Master, have I been your disciple for thousands of years? He said, it's been a long time, that's all I'll say. I said, does it always take so long? He said, oh yes. Desires for name, fame, this thing and that thing, take them away again and again. So I suppose I had those desires for name and fame, or he wouldn't have mentioned them. I certainly don't have it now, but I do have the absolute expectation that what I'm doing is going to be received by millions. I know that, but it's not a desire of mine, it's just a conditioning. I could have the opposite kind of conditioning, to be completely out of it and not interested at all in reaching people. I don't do it for name and fame, but I do it because I've suffered, and I want other people to know how they can get out of their suffering too. I think that somebody who's had physical troubles wants to be a doctor in this life. Somebody who in his past life has been crazy wants to be a psychiatrist in this life, and some people wonder. I saw a cartoon of a man going into a psychiatrist's office, and this floor was large black squares of tile, black and white, and this doctor is saying, look out, you stepped on a line. But I've suffered spiritually, and so I know it, and I long to help other people that way. And to be told it's not convenient for the organization, I just couldn't care less. I'm not trying to best them. I have to be true to my own nature. And Master constantly urged me in that direction because he knew it. But does it take a long time? Yes, it does. Because you get a little bit of desire, but then all these other worldly habits and patterns and memories come flooding in. And like somebody told me, he'd been a monk for many years, and somebody told him, you could have been a great scientist. And suddenly this desire to be a great scientist flared up in his mind. He said it was a struggle to get rid of that desire. Well, some people fail in that struggle. And they suddenly, and I've seen it happen, they suddenly get the opportunity to be a great pianist, and so they decide, this is for me, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Daya's youngest brother, Dale, lived at Mount Washington, and he wasn't ready for the path yet, but the family was there, his mother was there, so he was there. But Master would sort of try to correct him on some little thing, and he'd say, Mommy, he's scolding me, you know. He didn't really understand. So Master one day gave him a model airplane. That was it for him. He became an airplane engineer and worked at Lockheed, and that was his life. That's all he was really ready for. Well, that's not luck. That's your past samskars. You reached the point. Master said that Lincoln was born. He was a yogi in the Himalayas, but he had a desire to see racial equality. And as a result of that, he was incarnated as Lincoln. He had that yogic power. Many people who are born leaders in this world have a certain yogic power, and they may use it for good, they may use it for ill, depending on their nature. But these are things that don't get worked out quickly. If you can decide, no, I want God, and you can hold that decision all your life, God bless you. You've got some good karma going. Not many people have it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that out of 1,000, one seeks me. Out of 1,000 who seek, one maybe finds me. But in this world, Not many people are looking for God. I said to my brother one time, I was trying to show him the sheer logic of these teachings, and he finally, in exasperation, said, "It may be very interesting, but frankly, I'm not interested." So I've left him alone ever since. You can't help that. People have to come from themselves. It's not luck. It's karma. And some people, I mean, how many days of Brahma have you been around? You don't know. The time comes sooner or later. It just is inevitable that sooner or later you're going to start thinking that nothing that I've tried and nothing I could possibly try will work. First, you might think in your line of incarnations, well, maybe she wasn't quite the right girl, but if I had somebody a little different, or maybe that job didn't work, but if I had another, it would be more challenging, or maybe I was a great artist in this life, but that's not the answer, so maybe I'll find it as a great scientist. One thing after another, you'll try, and it's up to you. God doesn't hurry you. He says, I will wait. But sooner or later, you reach the point where you don't even have to imagine all the things you might try because none of them mean anything. And you know the only thing you really want is God. And when you reach that point where nothing can tempt you because nothing means anything to you, and you know that He is the only thing that you could ever be fulfilled by, then you're established. That's not luck. You've had to do hard work to get to that point. Norman said to Master one time, I don't think I have very good karma, sir. Master said, remember this, it takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. So, that's where you are right now, or you wouldn't be here. Cling to that. That's a very, very important karma. Do you have any tips on how to use a mantra such as Om Guru on a consistent basis? Yeah, just use it. Just keep repeating it in your mind. On the ski slopes, Om Guru, yeah, you'll find it's great fun too. You spoke very clearly last week's retreat about the universal need for Kriya or a similar technique, that the only way to liberation for each of us is to reverse the outward flow of energy back into the deep spine, upward to the spiritual eye and out through the five-pointed white star into cosmic consciousness. How will Kriya spread to all people and all religions? I understand, of course, that the power of the technique is only one element. The connection with the Guru is vital. You have said that not everyone will be drawn to this path or be disciples of Master. Will other masters come to give Kriya or a similar technique? Will Kriya or a similar technique, I maybe shouldn't have used this, be a part of most spiritual traditions later in Dwapara Yuga? Master said to Devi Mukherjee, not the one you know, the one who was at Mount Washington, someday lion-like swamis will come to this country and spread this message all over. You're going to see a great change here. But it will still be Dwapara Yuga, which means it's a materialistic age. And so no, you will not see everybody practicing Kriya, everybody doing this. So let's understand, first of all, as in a democracy, you say one man, one vote. But the truth is some people have much more than one vote. If the president speaks up for something, he's going to get a lot of people in his camp. It's not just one man, one vote, because nobody votes in silence. Everybody talks about these things. You get influenced by what the newspapers say. You get influenced by what people say whom you believe in. And so it is that not very many people come up with new ideas about anything. This is the defect, one of the defects of a democracy. It's something of a myth. Nonetheless, it's better than anything we've had, so I go along with it. But the truth is that real power in this world comes from just a few people. As they say, in India, one moon gives more light than all the stars. A few people of great conviction have an influence. You look at the people who lived in the time of Jesus. Do you know the names of any of them? Yeah, a few, but very few. Jesus was a power. Buddha was a power. Lahiri Mahasaya, I saw the balcony on which he used to teach Kriya. You think, well, when a master like that taught Kriya, there must have been thousands. I doubt there was room for 15 people on that balcony. He had a handful. It spread slowly, but his influence, his power, people say that his power is still, his samadhi is still in the town of Benares. It's still powerful. Centuries later, when you go to the tomb or go to where some saint lived, and a few people practicing Kriya, leave out those millions, a few people practicing Kriya is certainly going to have an influence on thousands of people. But we're looking for not that refined qualitative change, we're also looking for quantitative change. Others may not practice Kriya, but when they see, even talking cynically, that kindness works, and that Leo de Rocha was wrong when he said good guys finish last, that in fact good guys may seem to finish last in the beginning, but in the end they come out ahead. They begin to see a few examples like this, and it begins to eat into the popular consciousness. I've been amazed to see how people have changed. Just the mass consciousness has changed even in the few decades of my puff. It's quite a difference. There's a lot more concern for your fellow man than there was when I was young. There's a lot more spiritual seeking. Yes, there's a lot more violence and hatred too, because these are growing apace, both of them. But on the whole, the shift is going to be more and more toward a certain spiritual consciousness. Kriya Yoga will change the world. It will do its part in changing the world. This does not mean that everybody's going to be practicing Kriya Yoga. It would be unrealistic to expect it. But those few who do are going to have a very strong influence on a number of others. And that number of others are going to influence a great deal more until finally the mass consciousness is going to shift, is shifting in a very real way. Now mind you, many of my answers today, seeing this pile of notes, which I doubt that I can get through, are going to have to be brief. Any ideas on how to help people keep meditating once they get home? That's why I think company is so important, satsanga. It's so important to have meditation groups. It's very difficult when nobody does spiritual things around you to really keep it up. But when you have a few people who do, then it's not so hard. There aren't many people with that strength of will to keep on regardless what other people are doing. And company, Master said, is very important. Company is stronger than willpower. Therefore, come here when you can, form meditation groups when you can, be on the internet and be with Ananda and all its things, read books. All these things are very helpful. And remember, above all, Master was speaking about this and about the importance of company and of the presence of the Guru. And Bernard said, but what if I'm not with you, sir? Master said, am I not always with you? The Masters are with you. And if you keep that thought in your mind, you can keep their company as a very real thing. I can say that with great conviction. The world is increasingly busy and frantic. This makes it ever more difficult to respond to the call to meditate and to go deep when I do. Does this mean that God knows I have the strength to meet this challenge? Should I try harder or in a different way? God will inspire me, but is there somewhere I'm not looking? That's a tough one. Let me try it again. First of all, this world is increasingly busy and frantic. Do you have to be a part of all that? Do you have to watch television as a start? I never do. To me, it's just an irritant to have those people in my house yakking at each other. That's a good start. I never listen to the radio for the same thing. Somebody tells me that some terrible thing has happened. I'm interested. So then I turn on CNN and find out about the World Trade Center. I didn't know about it until somebody phoned from India to America who called here, and I don't know, somehow that was interesting. So I watched it for a while. And I saw it's the same old stuff. Yuck. So does it make it more difficult to respond to the call to meditate? Well, that's really up to you. What program do you listen to? God's sending out a program of love all the time. Why not tune your radio to that? Why tune in to everything else? It's always going to be there. Nothing new about that. But He's always there too, and He's always trying to touch your heart. And be with people who are devotees. Don't think that other people, just because they smile and like to chat with you, that they're friends. They're not your friends. Friends are those who are the friends of your soul. Not those friends who say, come on, stop being so philosophical, let's go have a drink. Those are friends. Dump them. I tell you, I don't have a single friend from my past. Not one. Too bad, I wish I did, but if they weren't going to come this way, I wasn't going to stay their way. I'm a bit of an ungrounded person. When I do my Kriya, I can feel even more ungrounded. Any suggestions for doing my Kriyas in a way that will help me not to feel too airy? I think that there are several things, but one is that when you, in other words, are you saying, it sounds like you're saying that it makes you airy, makes you feel too high. Well, Sri Yukteswar and Master gave us a beautiful example of that. When Master came down from his samadhi that Sri Yukteswar gave him, Sri Yukteswar said, here's a broom, let's sweep the porch. Bring your mind down to doing things. Ramakrishna used to say he needed a glass of water, or I want to smoke. Something to bring his mind down to the body. Well, it's as difficult for a master to hold his mind down here as it is for us to get up there. Granted, but you have to be real about what you're doing in your life and not feel that the two are split. They're all one. It's all God. Just understand that God is right here. God is in your vegetables that you're cleaning. God is in the porch that you're sweeping. God is in everything. Bring it down that way. Another thing to get into the Kriya more is just not think of it as the formal technique only, but just sort of feel it. Every time you feel a rise of exuberance or joy in anything, just sort of raise that energy in the spine. You'll find that it's a good way to get into your Kriyas too. For those of us who have been seriously doing our best at meditation for years but never seem to reach any depth, what advice or thoughts can you share? Master said to some people like that he would meditate for them. As long as you're making the effort, God won't let you down. Try sincerely. And as he said, this is the law of karma yoga. Action without desire for the fruits needs to be applied also to meditation. He said, you're doing a good thing anyway. Keep on doing that good thing. You'll get the results in time. If one is preoccupied with a problem, should he be doing Kriya or a deep meditation technique at that time? Very good to do so, but in the right way. I could give a lecture on that one. I'm sorry. Some of these things I really have to hasten through because it's already getting late, and I'm not going to go through them all. How is mental illness understood from a yogic point of view? I'm thinking of depression, schizophrenia, etc. I think the answer is that mental illness is an attempt to escape. We have a real problem before us in having to cope with reality on different levels. It's not so easy. Master said it's sometimes like running a race and trying to do stunts along the way. The burden of having to work on yourself, the knowledge that you ought to, should, this creates lots of tension in people. Many people, when they're new to the path, they just can't handle it. I mean new karmically, not new in any other way. But they escape into madness for a while sometimes. Doesn't last, they come out of it. If not in this life, then another. But I've seen that people who are somewhat green spiritually are more likely to do that. It's often just a sort of a need to get a breathing space. You don't want to have to relate to reality for a while. You'll come back to it in time. I don't know. Again, many of these things could take a long talk on the subject. Somebody in Rhode Island a year ago asked me I had a question and answer thing like this, and asked me who is Divine Mother. I spoke for an hour and a half about Divine Mother. I'm not answering in that way today. It seems like every time I make a new spiritual push, really trying inwardly all day to remember Master, chanting mentally, etc., I end up feeling very depressed. Is this just the ego? You know, it's a very common experience. It's a strange one. You're really gung-ho, and somehow you crash almost because of having tried. It's sort of, Anandamayi Ma had a very good illustration of that. She said you're trying to get into the ocean and you go into the waves and they push you back. And you gather your energy, go down the coast a little bit, down the beach, and try to enter it with great zeal, and the waves put you back, push you back. And then bit by bit, you find a place where finally you can get into the water and the current itself takes you out to sea. Well, and you drown in bliss in this case. So what you have here is that you've got karma working against you. You've got karma to overcome. And you have this zeal, and that karma comes up like a wave saying, hey, wait about me. You will have that battle. That is a part of the battle. It's not, you would love to think that now I've got it all set, all squared, now it's free sailing from now on. My God, 5 minutes later. It's the way, unfortunately, it's the way things are. It's the battle between your desire and your bad karma. And you keep on struggling and don't give up. You'll find that it gets easier and easier until finally you just think, what was all the excitement about? But this is your own subconscious. It's not God being mean to you. You can say Satan's involved. Yeah, of course, he would love to pull you back, but don't blame him. Blame yourself. Good ways to increase concentration. No, that's a long one. I can't answer that quickly. What is the difference between a master, a savior, or what makes a master? Or a saint, she said, a master and a saint. Yeah, Master talked about that. What we want to do is reach the point where we lose our ego in samadhi. But even then you're not a master because there's still the ego memory in sabhikalpa samadhi, and that can pull you back. And so you can go for quite a while. I have some reason to think I used to have that, and I fell from that long ago, and I'm trying to recapture that now. That happens. But when you go beyond that into nirvikalpa samadhi, Master said then you can't fall from that because there's no more ego. It's only as long as there's ego that there is that opportunity or that danger, whichever way you want to put it, to fall. And from then, however, there is still your past karma to deal with. So what you have is, and a saint is a loose term for anybody who's really dedicated to God. And it can be somebody who's far short of these stages, but his whole dedication is in that direction. A master is one who has reached nirvikalpa samadhi. This is the state known in India as jivan mukta. And you're a master at that point, but you may not be fully liberated. Master said to me that the saints and masters in the autobiography, only those were fully liberated. Very few were. He said none were fully liberated except our own line of masters. And he said Pranabananda, Ram Gopal Mojumdar. And I asked him about other saints in the autobiography. He said no, they still had karma to overcome. But past karma, they were masters. When you're a master, you're one with God. You just have past karma to work out. And Master said that they often will use that just as an excuse to bring them back, to bring them to their disciples, to help them. But a master is from that stage on. An avatar is one who has liberated himself from all past karma. And this is an ascending master or a siddha. And this is still not an avatar. But if you are reborn after attaining that state of full liberation, then you are reborn with full power. And that is an avatar. There are very few avatars born in this world. So those are briefly the gradations.
Was that state that you attained something in this life and then you feel you went down, or was it?
Say that again?
Was that state that you say you feel you attained Savikalpa in this life or in a previous?
No, and not long ago. Long ago. Why do things seem to get more difficult? In other words, more tests when one commits deeper to the spiritual path. You know that isn't true. Sure, they're more difficult, but you know, as Master said, a boxer doesn't get stronger by boxing babies. He boxes strong men. A wrestler develops strength by wrestling strong men, not children. And to you, it doesn't seem that big. It's sure they would knock other people out, but they don't seem all that great because you've developed more strength. So it's sort of like if you gave a fifth grader or even a third grader algebra or let's say calculus, he wouldn't be ready for it. Once he is ready for it, it's not so hard. It's just the next step in his own growth. So it is that you do have tests. They look bigger to other people. They aren't bigger. They're just what you're ready for. Jesus went through the crucifixion. He didn't need to go through it. He went through it for other people. He was taking their karma onto himself. But that's not such a big thing at that stage. I mean, the body is nothing. There's one story of a martyr in Christian history who was being burned to death. And according to the story, and I find it a little hard to believe, he said to the tyrant, "Turn me on the other side, tyrant, I'm cooked on that side." Whether he did it or not, I don't know. But you know, there's this beautiful story about Ramakrishna where he was dying of throat cancer, again for his disciples. And one of the disciples came with great pity and said, "Master, how are you today?" Well, the Master fed into this attitude and started talking about the ravages of this disease and how it was ruining this and destroying that. And you'd have thought, listening to him, that this is just terrible. And the disciple, as he listened to this long litany of woe, kept feeling more and more joy, until finally he said, "Master, don't say any more. I know what you're feeling." And the Master said nothing. You know, when you have that joy, nothing really matters. So don't worry about the things getting more difficult. It doesn't. You get stronger. That's the beautiful thing. And you feel more joy all the time. And that's the beautiful thing. How does one eliminate expectations of friends, Guru Bhais, so as not to judge and see their spiritual potential rather than the ego acting out? Well, frankly, I think that's a waste of time to judge other people. Judge yourself. You've got enough to work on. Dalai Lama says that Buddhists sometimes confuse their devotion to God with following him as a guide. What? They shouldn't, because he is only a man, as are they. Do you sometimes experience this confusion on the part of some followers? I don't know. I really don't care what people think. I worry a lot more about what God thinks. You mentioned in one of your talks that it doesn't matter who you are, but rather what you do. Would you explain further? Yeah, I'll explain further. It doesn't matter who you are, but rather what you do. Explain. Forgive me. It's nearly 5:30. I think I'll call it quits now. There are too many. Thank you all.